All right, good evening. Good evening and welcome to the Walton County, Florida Short-Term Vacation Rental Seminar. Thank you. Please make sure that your phones are silenced or muted, okay? I appreciate it. As we go through this, there may be some heated debate or whatnot. We understand it, but please, just be mindful of other people and respectful. We do have to be out of here, like completely out of here by 7. So when we're talking the agenda, okay, we're going to stick to it, right? But for additional questions, if your questions don't get answered here, if you look at the back of your program, there's a QR code, or if you go to seminar.mywcfl.rentals, there's a link on there to go to submit a question, and it doesn't matter who it's for. You can submit it for any of the panelists that are up here, and it will be distributed, okay? With that, we're going to start off with a combined presentation between the Office of Short-Term Vacation Rental Registration and Code Compliance. After that, we'll have a question and answer period for that specific section, and then we'll be handing it over to the TDT for their presentation, and then we'll do another Q&A session directly after that. And then we have the South Walton Fire District representatives here. Unfortunately, the Walton County Sheriff's Office couldn't make it tonight. They've been a little busy with spring break. So, but if you have any specific questions for them, we can forward them definitely to them, okay? And with that, I'm going to kick it off. So good evening, everyone. My name is Joshua. I'm the Short-Term Vacation Rental Registration Program Manager. Been with the program since the inception back in 2023. So our program is based upon 3 principles, which I have up there on the screen. So it's identification, registration, and coordination. Now, just to give you an idea of what we're looking at in terms of a short-term vacation rental population, we have what we would call a very tight grouping in the southern half of the county, specifically in Miramar, Santa Rosa, and Inlet Beach. The posters that are up to your right, my left, those are all active registered properties with our program. The vast majority are in that area of our county, right? The majority, and I say over 87%, are out-of-state owners. The average house is about 2,800 square foot, right? And it's 2 to 3 bedrooms. All right. So going back to 2020 really, that's when the whole idea of a short-term vacation rental program, registration program started, right? And it was based on the existing law at that time, okay? Some of the biggest that are applicable to short-term vacation rentals are, of course, State Statute 509 and the Florida Administrative Codes for life safety issues. And then, of course, at the county level, we had, our own noise ordinances and as well as other land development codes that related to other different sections of development. So the process was a fairly lengthy one. As you can see, it wasn't until January of 2023 that the ordinance was finally signed. And this is after numerous outreaches with the community for input from operators, owners throughout the whole area. And so what does the program actually do, right? So within our framework, we're a self-funded program. It's not funded by any funds from the county. All the funds that we generate, it pays for the people and the software that we use, okay? It was meant for accountability, right? In terms of making sure that there is a local responsible party, somebody that can be reached in the event of an issue. To settle that issue at the lowest level before having to go beyond that and engage county resources. Additionally, right, we looked at codifying again the state regulations, because a lot of these life safety regulations have been around since before, like, the 70s, right? It is really when it started. But codifying those, as well as updating our own regulations here in the Land Development Code, and to reiterate, the issues, what we would call the problem areas, right? Number one was overcrowding of short-term vacation rentals, right? Parking, and then trash and noise, right? And a lot of that has to do with requiring communication, right, and interaction, both initially from the management company or that rental agency, right, to the guests, but also, the community being able to reach out and contact that company or that owner or that manager to address issues. Now, the current process for identification of short-term vacation rentals, it's there are three different types, right? Self-identification, that's essentially a company or a owner coming forward and saying, hey, we have a short-term vacation rental, we want to register, right? Second method is community reporting. We have some areas where this is very prevalent, and it helps with our ability to identify a lot of these short-term vacation rentals. And then the third, and which I would say is now probably one of the smaller areas, is the compliance software that we use. It brings in data from across the web and verifies the address, location of the property within Walton County, right? And then what we do within my office is we send them a failure to register letter, right, if they're not already registered with us. Now, the failure to register letters are only one mechanism, right, to inform owners or potential owners of what kind of regulations that we have here in Walton County. Additionally, when a property is purchased, the property appraiser also sends out a letter that it has information about my program as well as the TDT, informing new owners of the fact that, hey, you have to, number one, register with TDT, and number two, you have to register through my office as well. So when we look at the registration process, right, there are some prerequisites even before they get to my office, right? Number one is if the property is deeded to an LLC or a company, right, and it's not a domestic, what I say by domestic is if it's not registered as a Florida entity, right, in Florida, it has to become so, because that property, because it's deeded to an LLC and is in a money-making venture, then it is required to register, right? That LLC is required to register. Second is the registration for paying taxes to the state, right? Now, there is a caveat there. And by they, I say the Department of revenue does accept bulk payments from Airbnb and VRBO, and likewise, we now accept those as in lieu of registrations. And that's part of our registration process as well. And number 3 is licensing through the Florida Department of Business Professional Regulation. And then we get to the county level, where they have to register with the Tourism Development Tax Office in order to remit their local tax for here in Walton County, and then register with my office. So once all those items are complete, right, and then they start our process. What we're looking for and what we go through is a checklist of different items to ensure that it's meeting the requirements set forth by the state or by the county, right? And therefore, like registrations, licensure, that's already a prerequisite, right? We also report possible homestead violations to the property appraiser, and then double check the occupancy and parking that the applicant has requested, as well as ensuring that we have the contact information for owner, management, and local responsible party, right? And that their affidavits are submitted and they have paid their fees. So where are we now, right? Right now the program is fiscally solvent. We have some limitations based upon 2025's Florida Senate Bill 180. There were some actions during this last session to try to amend some of those through Senate Bill 840. However, it died in the House, so we're still underneath those limitations of 180. And why I bring that up is because based upon our guidance from county legal, right, there are certain aspects that we can enforce and certain aspects that we are waiting to get more guidance until it becomes more legally clear about what some of the language in 180 and how it all plays out. Okay. Right now we're about, well, depending on the day, about a 90% compliance rate. We are a little bit long on the review queue, acknowledged. We're trying to bring that down. And we're currently at a flat rate per unit, okay? We have 5 people in the office, and we also pay for the salaries of code compliance officer, as well as 2 fire marshals for South Walton Fire District. We work hand in hand with everyone to try to ensure compliance. And Justin will speak to this after me, but we go through about 50 non-compliant properties a month. So whenever we have a special magistrate hearing, the 4 or 5 that actually end up at the hearing per month, those are the only ones that haven't responded to any of our requests to follow the law. So that's why they're finally there. Everyone else has already been taken off by that point. So where are we going from here in terms of like the program, right? We're looking at continuing the fiscal solvency, but we are looking at reducing the rates for this next fiscal year. We wanted to do square footage based, but probably not going to be able to roll that out quite yet. We will be looking to update our interface with both the customers and internally as well. Our software supplier has some new features that will be coming out, make it easier on the applicant as well as the reviewers. And our goal is ultimately to get to around a 95% compliance rate. And in addition, add additional capacity to code compliance for this next year. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to code compliance.
Good evening. My name is Justin Sloan. I'm the short-term rental officer for Walton County Code Compliance. I am going to walk you through my process part for all around 50 cases that I process a month. Our goal is compliance through education. My steps are sending and posting the notices, my contact with the owners, and then the hearing if it gets that far, fines and liens, and then what happens when compliance is achieved. So this is our notice of violation. Both of our notices, our notice of violation and then our notice of hearing, are sent at least 30 days before the next scheduled magistrate hearing. The notice of violation shows our ordinance, and then the corrective action needed, and then the compliance date. This is our notice of hearing, which shows, if it gets this far, where the magistrate hearing will be. It also shows their account number and their activation code, which is their login information for how to get registered, and the link that they need to visit. So all of my cases, I try to, in any way I can, contact the owner, make sure that they have received the notices in the mail, the notice of violation and the notice of hearing, and I explain the violation to them, make sure that they understand it, and make sure that they know where their login information is on those notices. The magistrate hearing, the case is heard by the magistrate, and if they are found in noncompliance, which at that point they are, the magistrate will give a new compliance date. For fines and liens, if compliance is not met by the new magistrate date, I will complete an affidavit of noncompliance, and then once that's done, the fines start to accrue daily, and that's a $500 a day fine. And then also a lien is placed on the property. And once compliance is achieved, I will complete an affidavit of compliance and have it recorded. And once that's done, the fines stop accruing. And once the admin fees have been paid, the property owners can request a fine reduction, which I then prepare a packet for the magistrate to rule on, and we'll go back to the magistrate for that. And the property owner will have a chance to plead their case of why they need it reduced. Once that happens, a new fine will be ordered by the magistrate, and if that's paid, then the lien can be released. If not paid, the fine will return to the original amount ordered.
All right, thank you, Justin. So at this time, I just want to mention that this presentation, as well as the handout, they will be available tomorrow on our website, so you can download them and have them at seminar.mywcfl.rentals. Okay, with that, if there are any questions related to the code compliance side of this or the registration side, please come up to the podium, and we're here to answer any of your questions. And the reason why we're having used the podium is because this is being live streamed for everyone that couldn't be here. Yes, sir.
My name is Jim Boone. I'm live in Grand Point and Inlet Beach. We have approximately 61 short-term rentals there. 31 are compliant, 26 are not. The only way I can tell is, in our neighborhood, we've come up with a plaque that we expect the homeowner to put property manager, the number, which I love your system, it's great. We don't have to call Walton County Sheriff. These homes that are short-term rentals, I know you started in '23. I've been on the phone with your office many times. I knew you were backed up, and so now you're 90%. These are not renewals. These are people that are trying to bypass the system.
Yes, sir.
So how do we get those 26 on board and be like the rest of them? Because we want to be compliant in our neighborhood because, like I said, the system is great. We have a problem, we call a property manager. We don't have to call the sheriff.
Yes, sir. So, thank you. And, no, we do recognize that, there are about 1,000, 1,500-ish properties. And those are the properties that we take monthly to the magistrate. Now, because of, man hours required to build these cases, we can only take about 50 a month. Our goal is, once we get another code compliance officer in this next fiscal budget, we will be able to expand that to about 100 a month. And key thing to this is, as well, when someone is taken to the magistrate's office, it's at complete random. So it's they're randomly selected from all of the non-compliant ones, because we don't want to have the perception of that, like we're picking on anybody. No,
Yeah.
we're not. It's totally random. We just pull it out of the list, and well, you won the lottery. But yes, no, I do recognize that there are still a lot out there, and we're working as much as we can to bring them into compliance. I will say, in the last year, we added close to 2,000 new properties to the program just in 2025, which, we're making gains. It's maybe not as fast as, we would like, but we're always trying to move forward.
Yeah. But these are not new homes.
Yes, sir.
These are existing, have been there since day one. Should a guy like me maybe send you some addresses?
Feel free to, like I said in my presentation, sir, yes, we have the community reporting aspect of it. If you go to our website, mywcfl.rentals, on there you can go to file a complaint.
Okay.
Right? Use that, and
Okay.
you can put in the addresses, and then we take those and we start the process.
Okay. I don't know if you mentioned it. What is the permit now per year
It's $300 right now.
right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's a one-time 12-month permit, has to be renewed for the same amount every year?
Correct, sir. Yes. Now, to address, properties that come into compliance that were out of compliance for a while, yes, they do get charged the back fees plus a late fee, because they're now 3 years late. And so, yes, we do get the back fees for that to add to.
So there's really no way that somebody can kind of slip through the system that you got, that is maybe managing their own property, but yet it's strictly a short-term rental?
It's very, very difficult.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. So I don't want to take up too much of
No,
the
no,
time
it's
here,
fine.
but the 26, they definitely have been notified, and they're well aware.
So,
Because I've heard that
Yeah.
the property manager is handling that for me, is what I keep hearing from some of those guys.
So let me answer that
Okay.
directly. So, when we started this program, we sent out close to, I think it was like 11,000 mailers. It was to every identified short-term vacation rental at that time, as well as previous short-term vacation rentals for the past 3 years, so since 2020, if they weren't renting at 2023, just to advise them, hey, this is the program, it's now law, it's time to start, the process.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi. My first question, and maybe my only question, and then just a couple of comments. What is the 90% compliance, not the 9-month average review queue mean? Not following that.
So the 9-month average review queue is based upon, when it was submitted and when we can actually get to it.
Okay.
Because until this last year, we only had 2 people
Right.
managing, thousands and thousands and thousands of applications. So we went from an average of, say, I think when there was only 2 of us, we could get 30 done a day reviewing. Now we're up to about 170 a day on a good day. So we have more personnel now, so we can crunch through them a lot faster.
Okay, and so that's what I thought that meant.
Yes, ma'am.
And then looking at that goal of reducing it by 50%, which I think is great. But the only other comment I would make is I think it's prudent. I know we can't change anything while SB 180 is in play, but to really take a look after we've been doing this for 3 years, I think a lot of good cooperation. I know plenty of the rental operators are on board, as you know, you've talked with our group, but we need to look at the language. Like, I think it's unrealistic to expect a homeowner, obviously, we're not waiting on the license to rent, and we're not gonna be in a position to wait on the license to rent, and you guys aren't trying to enforce that right now. I'm simply saying that there's a lot of this language, I think if we went back now, knowing what we know today, and we scrubbed it, and we could change it, we'd have a much cleaner document, to be working from, but, that's really the main point I wanted to make, is even if we cut that by 50%, we may need to put some language in there that provides that grace period from when you start the application process, because we've had a huge challenge getting our LLCs through the state. Most of them have come through, but there's still a few of those outstanding, and so that was my only question and comment.
And to speak to your point, ma'am, we do recognize that. We know we're not the only, kind of choke point in this process. For instance, Florida Department of Revenue, like, they're at least 30 days, sometimes, 60, 90 days to get your registration back.
Very true.
We understand it, right? It's all about the communication, right? As long as owners and operators are just communicating with us saying, hey, we filed it, we're just waiting, on the state, totally fine, right? It's really about the people that don't respond to our, hey, you need to register, right? Those are the real problem people that we're trying to go after, right?
Understood, and I think everybody has, across the board, between the sheriff's office, individual homeowners, I love when my homeowners can call, non-rental homeowners can just call us direct, and we just get it handled. And so I think that piece of opening up just the information and making it available to all has been extremely helpful, so.
Oh, and if I could, you don't have to stand, I was just
Okay.
going to tell, we have a sharing agreement with the crime prevention element from from Walton County Sheriff's Office, right? So we have an app that has the information related to the owner and, managing agent or local responsible party for all the properties that are under our program. This is how they can contact people quicker than what they used to be able to do.
Yeah, hi, I'm Tim.
Yes, sir.
Tim Donnelly with Grand Point. We have a major issue with street parking, especially with rentals. And the challenge we have is communication. And we recognize a lot of them really don't know. And I was wondering if we can get the list of property rental companies through you so that we can actually inform them?
Yeah, that totally fine, sir. All I would ask is that just put in a public records request, so it's official, and then we'll send it out. Because there's some information that we have to scrub, because it's not releasable, because it's redacted, but yeah, not a problem.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. All right. If there's no other questions, I'm going to turn it over to the TDC and TDT for their part of the presentation.
Awesome. Thanks, Joshua. Just for those I haven't met before, my name's Matt Alger, and I'm the tourism director here in Walton County. I just want to thank you all for being here tonight and showing your interest in learning a little bit more about the process and how all these things kind of work together. So, my end of this is a little bit different than some of the other folks up here because, we're not really involved in the registration or the compliance aspect of things. We're on the destination promotion side of it, so we're essentially the marketing arm for the county that's, tasked with generating interest in overnight visitation to Walton County. This probably isn't going to surprise anybody in this room or anybody listening online. Tourism is the #1 economic driver in Walton County, generates close to a $5 billion economic impact annually. So we understand, it's big business, and, within our department, we take what we do very seriously. Next slide, please. So just kind of want to touch on a little bit about who we are and what we do. Like I said, we're a county department, so we're tasked with promoting visitation to Walton County. We always kind of tell people that there's really two sides of the house or two sides of our operation. I fall on the administrative side, so we are the communications, marketing, sales, and visitor center side of things. So a little bit more behind the scenes. A lot of you folks won't necessarily see our information, our ads and things of that nature because you live here, so it's not really designed for you all to see. The more visible side of what you all would see in your day-to-day lives is what's going to happen on our beach operations side of the house. That is everything from maintaining beach accesses and boardwalks to the multi-use pathway, collecting trash off the beaches, and doing some capital improvement projects. One of the things I always kind of like to talk about when it comes to, Walton County tourism and what we do, we are completely funded by the tourist development tax, the TDT, or the bed tax as it's most commonly known. So every, staffer on our team, everything that we do is funded by the TDT, not the county's general revenue funds. So those are obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, I'm sorry, those are only paid by, our visitors and folks staying in short-term rental accommodations. One of the things we always kind of, talk about here in the community is the difference between tourism and the TDC, right? When we talk about Walton County tourism, we're talking about the actual department. We are that county operation, the staff who's doing the day-to-day work. The TDC, or the Tourist Development Council, that's actually a 9-member advisory board that's tasked with fiduciary oversight over the TDT monies. That's mandated by state statute. So I would take that opportunity just to not call anybody out, but to recognize Amy Wise-Coble, who's in the audience. She is the vice chair of our TDC, so thank you for being here. So once again, a little bit more about what we do. Like I said, we kind of maintain the beach amenities and the facilities, multi-use path, trash collection, capital improvement projects. Next slide, if you don't mind. So kind of the TDT funds at work. I think that's always a big question folks have is what do we actually do with the monies outside of, what people would consider, traditional marketing and advertising. So community programs is something we're very passionate about. What you see there is some of our representatives from Keep Walton County Beautiful. That's an affiliate of Keep America Beautiful. And that's just an arm of what we do to give back in terms of, scheduling beach cleanups and neighborhood cleanups north of the bay. Our folks go into the schools and do educational programs with children. We just partnered with a visiting school last week who was in town to do a beach cleanup while they were here for some community service. Transportation is something where we're kind of getting our feet wet on, something we've rolled out here recently in the past year and a half. For any of you who may have used our tram at the Grayton Beach Central Station, really great program, kind of started out a handful of years ago with this idea of how could we help provide a parking area and then transportation down to the actual beach area in Grayton Beach, understanding, you know, some of those limitations down there in terms of parking. So we run that north-south shuttle to Grayton Beach, and then as of March 1, we've launched our east-west program, which will take folks from that parking lot down to Dunal and down to Ed Walleen. So, you know, we're really excited about that and just finding opportunities to help kind of move people throughout the community. We spend a lot of time and dollars, for that matter, investing in cultural arts, programs that really enrich our community. Our Artist of the Year program is really one of our more notable programs. We also do a thing called Art in Public Places, trying to encourage opportunities to beautify our community. I mentioned kind of capital improvements. You know, one of the things that we don't talk about a lot, but I think it's important to share with you all, is we've spent more than $100 million since 2016 of TDT funds on property acquisition. Now, that can look different depending on what it is. That is for beach accesses, that is for parking facilities, you know, anything that we can identify that's going to, you know, not only enhance that visitor experience, but also help create, you know, an amenity or a benefit to our resident population. So you kind of see some of these pictures on here that just kind of touch on, you know, some of the different things we have going on. I really kind of wanted to, you know, highlight the three you see in the middle, because those are really the visible capital improvement projects that are really more recent examples of how we're putting some of those dollars to work. So what you kind of see at the top of that page is what we're dubbing our Grayton Beach Community Center, and that's going to be a really cool project down in the heart of Grayton Beach, adding not only restrooms to that area, but some interactive displays and kiosks and things for visitors to be able to see and learn a little bit more about the history of Grayton Beach. In there in the middle is what we have as our Driftwood Municipal Parking. So that project is down in Miramar Beach, identifying the fact that, you know, we have a pretty substantial public beach access down there, and we saw an opportunity to expand parking for that beach access. Touching on the beach access, you know, we also understand that, you know, it's in our duty to find opportunities to acquire beachfront. You know, for some odd reason, they're not making more beachfront these days. So when we find an opportunity to buy a piece of beachfront to add more public beach, we're certainly going to do that. And the Seagrove Regional Beach Access is a great example of that. We're hoping to have a ribbon cutting on that project here, hopefully in the next couple months. You know, the one challenge we have when it comes to property acquisition is the state statute dictates how much of our funds we're allowed to use on property acquisition. So by statute, we're limited to 10% of our annual revenues for property acquisition. You folks are familiar with the price of beachfront. You're not buying a whole ton of beachfront these days for $5.5 or $6 million. So, you know, we really have to be strategic when it comes to identifying, you know, potential properties for that expanded beach access. So that's really kind of a general overview of the tourism department side and kind of how we wrap into, you know, the scheme of what these smart folks up here do. But with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Tori. She's in the TDT office and really has a lot of great information about what her department does for you all.
You got to have the pretty slides. My slides are... Let me turn my little green button on. Okay, so it's going to feel like a lot of slides. Y'all hang with me. I promise I'm going to go quick. All right. So obviously he mentioned that the TDC and the tourism department, all those pretty things he just showed you are funded by the funds that our office collects and maintains as part of the Walton County Clerk of Court. So I'm under Crystal Sconiers, under the Clerk of the Court, and I have been working with TDT since 2014. So bear with me as we could jump into my dry slides. Y'all ready? All right. Next slide for me. All right, so there's 2 tax districts in Walton County. Basically, if you want to think about the line, North Walton is Choctawhatchee Bay and up, and then South Walton is south of the bay, going from east to west end of the county. Your South Walton tourist tax rate currently is 5%, 3% for the North Walton rate. And I will just use a little plug right here for a moment to let you know there are some slide or handouts that are not in these slides that are just typical general information. We like to call them in our office just educational resources. It's something I would give to somebody who buzzes our office and wants to know, hey, I just bought this property, I may or may not short-term rent it. Tell me what I'd have to do. And this is those kind of handouts that have been consolidated in the handout packet are sort of the intro course, if you will, to, well, if you decide to rent, here's what you got to do, right? So I didn't put them all in the slides, but I did put them in the handouts. So that just gives you an idea of some educational resources that we pass, that we do. But as far as the TDT goes, and Matt mentioned that it's supposed to be paid by the renter, the tourist, right? It's not supposed to be coming out of the pocket of the owner of the property that's operating the short-term rental. According to Florida statutes, the TDT is geared to be and meant to be a pass-through trust-type tax. It's paid by renters and remitted by your short-term rental operators, whether that's the individual owner or a property management company, just the operator of the short-term rental. When we explain that over the phone to people, we explain it as it's supposed to pass through you on the way to us. It's not supposed to come out of your pocket as the operator. So on our next slide, this is just a small little bullet point of how we're kind of connected to Josh's piece, right? Which is under the planning department and kind of a different animal than ours. But we are a prerequisite for the short-term vacation rental certification. We are separate entities and we have different regulations, right? So I'm governed by Florida statutes and I have to operate like the sales tax. And we go by statute 212, for example, 125. Those are kind of the ones we have to tick our boxes to. And then as far as information sharing, because we're dealing with confidential tax information, we are really hands tied as to what we can share publicly. I can't give out a list of all the people who are paying the taxes. It's their tax confidential information. It's considered confidential. So I just wanted to plug that real quick there. So that limits us between county departments and citizens and all that. It's a confidentiality issue with their personal finances. All right, next slide for me. This just gives you a little history by district. That was one of my things I was supposed to talk about today. History, check. There you go. These were the tax rates going back to the first South Walton tourist development tax, which was in 1986. And then you'll see it gradually ramp up. We had the 4.5, and then we backed back down to 4. That was a very limited time situation. It had a sunset provision on it. And then currently, of course, we're at the 5% I mentioned already. And then your North Walton is obviously newer. You'll see that when we get to the charts section of things. There will be a lot of NA for North Walton in my data that I provide until 21 rolls around when they enacted a North Walton tourist development tax. So we can go ahead and move on to the next. And there's the chart. So to point out the North Walton 2021, if you'll notice in the collections, and I know it's going to be real small for y'all looking up at these TVs. I do apologize for that. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, there's like a bright green at the bottom. That's your North Walton collections in comparison to the dollars collected. And this is all at the 2% collection rate. So y'all saw that. Oh, there you go. Ooh, look at Zoom. There we go. Okay. So if you'll zoom me back out, the one thing I want to point out, I have these charts both in the slides that look very similar. If you'll flip a few slides forward, you'll see, we'll look at, well, you don't have to flip, but you'll see in total collections, I've done this to eliminate the issue of those tax rate changes. So that's why that tax rate slide came first, so that y'all could see, obviously, those increases affect your collections in total. So in any comparison that we're going to give you that's public comparison, it's most likely going to be at the base rate of 2% to eliminate the issue of tax rate changes, so that you can see the real trend rather than just, well, in 21, we upped the tax rate. So, that changes your total collections amount when you're doing a year-over-year comparison. So there's our collections in view form. You can see in the most recent years, obviously everybody knows what happened in 2020. We're all still, that's very fresh on the mind. 2021 and 2022, you'll see, went through the roof, right? Just booming, soaring, amazing numbers, right? And what it looks like on the map from here, right, 23, 24, 25, is what I refer to as a normalization. We're normalizing at an elevated level. I mean, we're sitting pretty still. We're sitting up high compared to 2019, but it is almost looking like a plateau situation when you're looking in the total collections, especially at the 2%, eliminating that issue of tax rate changes. You're looking at all in a row. So next slide for me, please. This is going to be the numbers that chart, that image came from. I did the decreases in red for you, so you can see those, and those do align with some key disruptors, if you will, in the market. So 09 recession, 10, you had this, you're still kind of reeling and recovering from the recession, and that was the BP oil spill. And then if you zoom down to your next one, you see 2020, of course, with the COVID decrease, which actually, there's a little asterisk by that one. There's a little asterisk by 2020 because we had a tax rate increase part of the way through that year. And if you're not looking at the 2% base rate comparison, we actually mitigated that decrease you see there. And in total collections, we were up for 2020, which was remarkable for the time since all of May was completely short-term rental prohibited by COVID restrictions. So the other ones you'll see look like some decreases down there, but if you'll note, particularly those last two total percents, you're talking about year over year. So in other words, the total money we collected compared from 2024 compared to 2023 went down 0.02%, which is tiny. And then the next comparison, that 25 to 24, still very nominal at a 0.23, and that is at the base rate comparison of 2% collection. So this is not the total amount that we collected, this is just that 2% total that we use comparatively to give an accurate trend analysis year over year. All right, so let's buzz forward. Here's some of those disruptors that I mentioned, right? These are some of the ones that y'all are all probably very well acquainted with. 04 and 05, we had some hurricanes, and then of course I already mentioned that recession, the oil spill, and the COVID, and then of course 21 and 22 is just like surge and record demand. I mean, just through the roof. So we can go ahead and buzz forward again. One thing I did want to point out, and this is something that has become evident, and y'all are probably aware of it too, but in comparison, South Walton has historically shown some slight variations to general trends, even with our neighboring counties. We do have a higher end visitor base for the most part. Some of those large homes bring in some large dollars, right? And there is a large vacation rental inventory here, which y'all are more than well acquainted with, I'm sure. And we also benefit from being a strong drive-to market. So that was what kind of helped us in COVID, I believe, my personal opinion. I think it really helped us that some of our target markets, they could drive and not have to get on a plane and go to the airport and be exposed to all the sickness. They could ride in their own car to get here. And I think that carried us through a little bit and helped us sort of survive COVID a little bit better than maybe some others, maybe further south in Florida and things like that. So that said, these next couple slides are going to discuss the two most significant disruption cycles. This shows not only the Gulf area pattern, meaning just the full panhandle-ish section of the Gulf counties, but also the specific Walton County pattern that we saw and the effect that had on taxes. So I won't read all of this to y'all. It is in your slides. It will be posted, but it does show where in 2007 we had some strong tax collections, yet 2008 we had some decreases. All of this is related to the Great Recession beginning, and then the deepest recession period really hit in 09. And then 2010, you've got the oil spill. That created some uncertainty in the market. People weren't so sure if they wanted to pay those prices to come down if the oil was going to be all over the sand. I'm sure y'all all remember all of that. We don't have to rehash that. But what that did was create cancellations, and that did stall recovery in tourism and tax collections for that 2010 year a little bit. But then 2011 bounced right back with a rebound, and we had increased tax collections again from there on, and it went pretty steadily up from there going forward. So the next disruptor, again, COVID was the whole thing. We've kind of talked about this, but the benefit, the thing I really want to point to is obviously 21 and 22, some all-time highs, big monies, great years. But 23, 24, and 25, yes, we saw a decrease come down from your total collections of 22 down to fiscal year 23. And, I mean, not to take away from that in any way, but the benefit is we are still significantly above where we were in 2019. So the pre-COVID numbers that we were seeing that were good numbers, they were solid collections, it was solid tourism demand, it was solid bookings, things were going well, right, before COVID kind of upset the apple cart. But the benefit is we're normalizing at an extremely high level in comparison. And even though things may be plateauing, we are still sitting at a pretty high collection amount. So if you'll bounce forward with me. I even did a comparison here for data purposes. I'm a data girl. I don't get the pretty pictures, right? Like, these are what I get to do. This shows you every year, instead of being 2019 to 2020 and then 2020 to 21, year over year like that, this shows you a comparison of 2025 to 2019's collections, 2024 to 2019's collections. It's a basically table showing pre and post-COVID numbers, and you can see that at the 2% base rate calculations, we are still up 68%, 83%, 75%. So, I mean, we are still significantly higher than those numbers in 2019 that were pre-COVID life. Someone bounce forward for me. This is your total collections number. So while this looks exactly like that other slide, the numbers at the bottom and the numbers on the next slide are different because this is your actual total dollars collected by my department. And you can still see your green down here at the bottom. That bright green, as a reminder, is the newer tax for the North Walton District for tourist development tax. So your total tax collections are sitting right at 60 million for 23, 24, and 25. And yes, there's some variations if you didn't have that rounded down, right, to abbreviate to fit in my screen here. You'll see those real numbers on the next slide. But that is down from 2022, but it is also still significantly higher than, say, 2019's 27.7 million. So this was an image that kind of, to me, really showed the differences. This last 5 years, I'd say, has been just kind of remarkable. Just everything that's happened since COVID is just kind of wild. So let's go on to our next one. These are the actual numbers. So if you were to call my office and say, what are your tax collection numbers in total? This is what I would provide to you. This shows you going back to fiscal year 1999, how much we have collected. So what that tells you is for South Walton total, that kind of almost middle column that you're seeing right there, the total since 1999, and that's just the farthest back I have some good Excel to actually work with to give you data from, $612 million collected for South Walton alone. So that is your kind of picture in time, if you will, of all of it going back. It includes your tax rate changes when they change. It doesn't give you the effective date, but it gives you the year where that fell. And then you'll notice over here, if you look at 2020, this is the one I kind of touched on when we were on this chart for the 2%. It looked like a decrease for 2020 at the 2% comparison because you're eliminating the issue of a tax rate change. But on 1/1/2020, before COVID ever was on the horizon, we knew it was happening, the tax rate had been increased from 4% to 5% effective January 1st. And because of that, we actually ended 2020 with a 13% increase, which was pretty wild considering nobody could even stay here legally in the month of May, like the whole month. So that was, and there were other, of course, effects that happened all around that. So that was pretty great timing for us collections-wise, that tax rate increase timed up with the world turning upside down. Your totals, you see that we had the 0.23 increase from 24, comparing 24 to 23's collections. And then this past year, it looks like it's different, but if you look in total, those are so similar, those numbers. So it's really a 0.15% decrease. So I can't say it's exactly plateauing, but it sure looks like it in a graph. So the next slide for me, please. This is that same thing in total. We don't have to rehash it, but you can see these are your comparisons at total, looking at 25 versus 2019, 24 versus 2019, and so on. And all of this will be available on the website for you anytime that you want to look at what these numbers are. They will be published for you. The one I just want to call out is 100% from 2022. We all knew it was wild, but it doubled. It actually doubled. So next slide, please. This is my contact information. It also has the website for the clerk's office where you can find our, that's all right, where you can find the forms and frequently asked questions. If there's somebody that has questions about the TDT and they end up calling your office, or there's some miscommunication with what they think the tax is, for, or whatever, this is a great place to send them to. The clerk's office website under other services is where you'll find us. And then the TDT site, that last one, that's just where they register. So if you are a management company, you already are familiar with that. That's our tax portal. But for anyone who is not, I wanted to publish it on the site for help. Thank y'all so much. Oh, sure.
What's the breakdown of hotel versus short-term rental percentage?
We
So,
have,
hold on, so the people at home can hear. The question was, what was the breakdown between short-term rentals and hotels for the TDT tax collected? Yes, sir.
yeah, we have a percentage breakdown that is very heavily single-family dwelling compared to our neighbors. But as far as exact percentages, I didn't come with those tonight, so I don't have those off the top of my head. I can pull that for you if you want to send it through the thing. I'm happy to do that. As far as our property breakdown, it does change all the time. I mean, obviously, the hotel's less so. And any percentages, as a reminder, that I give you will be different than maybe what Matt may provide to you, because anything I have is just the people who are doing the right thing, right? They were registered for tax collections and they're giving us the money they're supposed to be. Whereas if I were to maybe send you over to the tourism department, his number will be based on parcel IDs, not who's registered, right? So we're happy to get you a property breakdown. But just let us know who you want to provide it. Do you want to know the breakdown of who's actually remitting the taxes? Which we hope would be everyone.
What's the hotel percentage versus short-term rental? So hotel is about 40%.
Do you want to do that one?
Yeah, if you'll send a message through that QR code or email Josh, we'll make sure to get you that information. I don't have it with me tonight, so I don't want to say something that I can't back up with the actual information, but happy to get that for you.
Okay, anybody else with any questions, come on up to the podium. We're happy to answer. Tourism side or my side, either one.
I think everybody's just waiting for Sammy.
Shoo, love it. Thank y'all. I appreciate it.
All right, and with that, hand over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Before we get started, earlier was said that the program funds 2 fire marshals. In fact, it funds 2 fire inspectors. I'm the only fire marshal for South Walton. If we had 3 of them, I could probably retire sooner. So.
Yeah, my bad,
All
Sammy.
good.
My
All
bad.
good. I just, if you call and you complain to the fire marshal, it's the other guys. With that said, my name is Sammy Sanchez, Fire Marshal, South Walton Fire District. I have a life safety division of 5 full-time fire inspectors. And this is Troy Schustrom. He's one of them. He's going to speak a little bit about the actual process for short-term rental inspection. So typically, fire departments don't inspect homes. We get this question all the time. It's a home, why are you involved? Well, we're going to break all that down for you tonight. There's probably going to be, you can always tell who presents their slide last because it's probably the most colorful and doesn't match the rest of the program, so I think that's the way mine's going to look. But we're going to go over what we're looking for. Our job really is to make sure you pass your inspection. That is my primary focus with short-term rental, so hope that we can present that information to you tonight. So back to that question, what gives us the authority to inspect homes? We get this question all the time, especially from folks that own homes and they live in Alabama or Tennessee and they want to question why we're in their home. But under Florida Administrative Code 69A43, which outlines uniform fire safety standards, which, by the way, Florida Administrative Code 69A40-43 has been in the books for years. It's not anything new. It's not anything Walton County created. It's not anything that we pulled out of the air. It's been in Florida statute forever. But anyway, it's a transient public lodging establishment is defined as any unit, building, or group of buildings in a single complex rented to guests more than 3 times in a calendar year for periods of less than 30 consecutive days or 1 calendar month, whichever is less. That is the definition of transient lodging. That is why we inspect them. So, having said that, in 2025, so let me back up. In 2024, we actually started inspecting these, and it was very, very late in 2024. But in 2025, we inspected roughly 2,000, we conducted 2,000 inspections. So that's the initial inspection, and then that's coming back a little bit, but it's about 2,000 properties that we visited. When we first started doing inspections, the initial first inspection, the compliance was about, and I'm going to be generous here, about 10%. I'm being very generous. Since then, because short-term rental property managers and companies speak to each other and homeowners do, that compliance now on our first visit is probably 60, maybe 70%. So we want to say thank you if you're in the audience and you were one of those that helped us get that initial first inspection done. In 2026, we've already conducted 526 inspections, so we're on record to probably surpass that 1993. The difference is I've actually got I've got a fuller staff this year than I did last year. I had some issues, but we're moving forward. So the most common violation that we've come across is emergency lighting. And we're going to go over that in the slide, but that seems to be the one that got most of the inspections, and we had about 3,000 violations. Now, that means either something was missing or not working. It doesn't really differentiate. It just says we had 3,000 violations during our inspections. So with that said, I think I'm going to let Troy talk about how you get notified to start your inspection. And then we're going to go over the slide of what to review.
All right. Well, good evening. So the process essentially is the county sends us, our office, a list of properties that have applied for their short-term rental. Once we get that list, we send out approximately anywhere from 100 to 200 emails out to random property addresses. Quite honestly, it's kind of random. It's just a list that the county provides. That's kind of the start. So you have approximately 10 days to respond to that email. The email will have a link on it to, it's essentially like a bookings link, where you can actually book your inspection. It's a pretty simple process. There's also other information on that email, what we inspect, what we're going to be looking for, all that information. Also, contact information. If you have any questions, you can respond to that email. Then once you schedule the inspection, you are actually required to schedule that inspection using that bookings link. We don't schedule it. We just send you an email asking you to schedule. You have 10 days to respond. If you don't respond, we will send you a second request. Essentially, it's a 3 strikes you're out kind of process. So you got 3 opportunities to have an inspection. If you cancel or no-show or you don't respond, each one of those steps counts as a failed inspection, just so you're aware. After we've done the inspection, you'll receive an inspection report. If you have violations, you have approximately 30 days to comply. So you have 30 days to make those repairs or to install the emergency lights or whatever you are missing. And then you will also have another bookings link to book your inspection.
Real quick, it's important to understand, when you receive that reinspection or that inspection report, we're sending it to whatever email address you provided. So sometimes the owner says, well, I didn't get it. Well, it's because you didn't give us the email address, your property manager did, or vice versa. So it depends who wants the information. So when you get that inspection, be sure that whatever email address you provide, that's the person that needs to receive it.
And we do our best to reach out. Obviously, if we don't get a response, we're going to try to contact, use the phone number. We don't simply just try to write it off and and try to send you guys back over to the county. We are doing our best, because for the most part, everybody's trying to comply. We see that, we're just here to help and help facilitate to get you to that end process. That's all we're here for. If you want to go to that next slide, I don't know if you wanted to go over that.
Yeah,
or-
I'll go over it.
All right.
So this is basically, in a nutshell, what my men and women are inspecting when you sign up for the inspection. One, address, obviously, it's got to be visible and contrasting to the structure. If your house is black, you don't want to put black numbers on there, obviously. Give our men and women and emergency responders a fighting chance to find you. You probably hear me say this more than once, but we can't help you if we can't find you. So address number is one of the things they're looking for. Emergency illumination lights. Let me back up just a little bit. In 69A, all this is covered in there. It just doesn't go down the rabbit hole of codes. If you've ever dug in a code book, if you've never done it, good for you. If you have, then you'll understand. 69A just says emergency lights, but when you start looking through the code book, what does that really mean? You've got to go to a whole nother book, and it's got a whole nother set of language. But basically, I'm not trying to insult anybody here or anybody online, but that exit sign above that door, over to your left or your right, that's an exit sign, okay? You're not required to have one of those in your home. Please don't put one of those in your home. If one of my guys tells you to put one of those on your home, you call me directly. It's not required. Now, the lights beside them, those are the emergency lights. That's just what they call a combination kit, okay? Each home is required to have just the light portion, not the exit light. I repeat, once again, not the exit sign. We've had so many people call us and say, this exit light is ugly. Yeah, of course it's ugly, but you don't need it. So, again, just emergency lights, and it has to illuminate the primary means of egress. What does that mean? It doesn't have to go necessarily right over the door. It just has to illuminate the pathway. So if you have a 2 or 3-story home, that means you got to have one on each landing. And I think that's what jams up some of our folks. When they go out there, they don't realize that they had to have one on each landing.
And just to touch on that, just understand your form of egress from second floor, third floor is your stairwell. That's why, yes, if you read the ordinance and the code in here says your primary egress. You have to illuminate your primary egress. It doesn't say stairwell, but your primary egress from your second and third floor is your stairwell. So that's how you have to kind of interpret that code. And that's what we do, or try to do.
And actually, what my folks do is when they come out, if you're not really sure where to put it, they will absolutely help you and place that for you. They're not going to wire it up for you. They're not going to install it, but they're going to tell you where to put it, where it'll pass the inspection. The fire extinguisher, it's got to have a fire extinguisher. It's a 5-pound fire extinguisher. It's typically what it is, the 2A 10BC rating. The fire extinguisher has to be somewhere visible within the house. If it's in a cabinet, there has to be some type of sticker over it that says that the extinguisher is located in there. There's got to be one on each floor. So again, you have 3 stories, 3 fire extinguishers. Smoke detectors, they have to be installed and operational in all sleeping rooms. Now, there are many houses, like mine. My house was built in '04, and they didn't put the smoke alarms in each room. So what does that mean? Does that mean I've got to hire an electrician and run wire and put smoke alarms in each bedroom? Troy?
Well, not necessarily. If you read 69A, you are allowed to have battery operated. With that said, you're also required to keep a log of a weekly inspection. And that is up to you as the homeowner to keep that weekly log, or rental management, whoever's keeping it.
So typically, in a regular residential home, smoke detectors are not installed in garages, right? But if you've got a property that they've converted that garage with 8 bunk beds, there has to be a smoke alarm in there. I mean, give those people a chance. That's all we're asking. This is all minimum requirements. It's not anything out of the ordinary. This is all basic minimum requirements, so. And I say that because there are properties that have converted their garages and probably have 8 bunk beds in them, so. Carbon monoxide detectors, they have to be installed and operational outside of each sleeping room, outside of sleeping rooms and on every floor with homes with gas appliances and/or attached garages. So if your home does not have an attached garage, if your property does not have any gas appliances, these are not required. You can certainly put them in if you like. We're never going to say that's wrong, but they're not required. Now, if you don't have a detached garage or attached garage and you don't have any gas appliances in the house, but you have a gas propane grill out back, that's fine. You don't need a carbon monoxide detector.
Or a pool heater.
Or a pool heater, that's correct. That's on the outside. That's where we're trying to get you. We're trying to get you outside. Emergency escape plans, they're required in each sleeping area on the 3rd floor or higher. So if you have a 2-story home, it's not required. You have a 3-story home, you have to have an escape plan, just like you see at a hotel, on the 3rd floor. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can go online, you can create your own, color it with a crayon if you need to, as long as it's legible. Well, don't do the crayon. As long as it's legible. We've seen them in all forms or fashion. They sent this to us and asked us if it's okay. If we can read it, it's probably okay. Homes with fire sprinkler systems, they're required to be annually inspected by a licensed fire protection company. Typically, properties that are 4 stories will have these. And that's going to be incumbent upon the property manager or the owner to make sure that that system has been inspected by that licensed company. We don't inspect them, we just look at the tag to make sure that it has been inspected. Again, these are the same criteria that we would look at for a commercial property. So nothing's really changed from the inspection standpoint. And then homes with fire alarms is the same thing. They have to be inspected annually by a licensed fire alarm company. We don't have many homes that have this. They're typically a combination burglar fire alarm system. If that's the case, we just ask you that you have it inspected by an alarm company. Realistically, when my folks show up, it's probably a 15-minute inspection. The question we get all the time is, well, I've got guests here. Can it wait? Well, if you want to, that's a strike. That's up to you. But you don't wait for that cable guy. You don't wait for the plumber when he shows up. So we're just asking you to extend the same courtesy to us. This is, again, these are minimum requirements. My folks they're not going to go in there and they're going to say, oh my God, this place is a death trap. If they do that, please call me. But they're not going to do that. They're going to go in there, they're going to inspect it, and they're going to send you the report or whoever you ask us to send the report to. But in a nutshell, that is basically the gist of the fire inspection. And again, you know, back to that 3,000 violations, think about that for a second. We're asking people to come stay here. We're renting these properties out to them. At the very least, we should make it safe, and that is really our primary goal. We're not trying to shut anybody down. We're not trying to kick anybody off the rental program. We just want to make sure that their house is safe, just like we would any other commercial property.
And just to touch on that, the violations as well and the safety aspect of it, 22%, I believe 22% of last year's inspections, smoke detectors did not work or were not installed. That's a big number when you think about it.
Yep.
And that's life. So.
That is our email for short-term rental inspections. If you have any questions, that's our number, 267-1298. You can call and ask to speak to a short-term rental inspector, or you can ask to talk to the fire marshal, and I'm just transfer you over to one of these guys. And then you can schedule your appointment on the link provided below. Obviously, you can't copy that down, but will this be available?
Yes, this will be available on the website. And additionally, just want to mention, we do host that infographic that Semi and Troy were talking about that has the items. It's hosted on our website as well, and you can download that for free.
So I'd be more than happy to field any calls you may have at this point. Just ask you that if you're really in depth with your conversation, we can talk offline, and hope we try to get some answers for you. So I'll be more than happy to field any questions.
Do you allow the, like Bluetooth smoke alarms?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
As long as they're UL certified
You also?
Or EL.
or EL,
Yep.
US.
Hi, my name is Stephen Saul with Mid-Bay News. I wanted to ask about the plans, the emergency escape plans. Where do those have to be placed? And do those have to be behind the acrylic or whatever on the third floor, whatever?
No, but it would preserve it much, you know, and make it easier for somebody not to tear it down. Or
So you're
make it
saying
harder
that
for
they,
somebody
that
to-
they have to be posted, because you were talking about it has to be drawn and it has to
Yes,
be legible?
and I apologize, it has to be posted, yes, sir.
Okay.
It is posted. It's posted on a legal size paper, I believe 8 by 11, according to the
Yeah,
ordinance.
it has to be on
And
just
a
regular size.
door or nearby the door
Yeah.
of the bedroom.
And those inspection reports, where do you want those that are being inspected to have both of the sprinkler system and the fire alarm inspections? Where do you typically have those posted, or where?
We won't actually get those reports when the sprinkler or the alarm company shows up and inspects your system. They will actually tag it. It'll either be a red tag or a green tag, just like a stop sign or like a traffic light. Green is good, red is stop. There's something wrong with it. So that's what they're looking for when they show up.
And you just want to see that they're both green?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Justin, I know you got something. Come on.
I don't have any questions. I have more of a statement to introduce myself. So my name's Justin Powell with Plotch West Solutions. So we actually assist residents and property managers alike in this process. So any registration issues you may have, any fire issues you may have, we can actually help with mitigation of any of that as well. I have some flyers as well as some cards as well. So if you guys want to see me on your way out, I can definitely help with that. We work real close with Josh and Sammy's office. So, thank you.
And again, my number was on there, so if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call or shoot us an email. So thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, unless there was one more, anybody else? Oh, okay.
All right. Thank you, Sammy and Troy.
Sheriff's Department said, don't commit crimes. I think that was pretty much
Yeah.
the gist of their conversation.
Yeah, so they've been real busy this week already and last week, so they couldn't make it today. But Sergeant, I believe it's Sergeant Philip Kent is the new crime prevention officer. He took over for Mark Wendell, who just recently retired. Yeah, if you want to reach out to to the sheriff's office, if you have questions related to the crime prevention side of it, he will be your point of contact. I would be remiss if I didn't put that on here. With that, so I'm just going to cover these last closing items and then open floor for any additional questions that anyone might have. As I mentioned at the beginning, there is a online form that you can ask additional questions, and for those people online, they can ask their questions there. It's at seminar.mywcfl.rentals, or you can scan the QR code. It's up here, or it's in the program, the handout that we gave out. We're going to collect questions up till April 1st, okay, and respond to them as they come in. But we will also produce a combined summary of questions and responses for the public, as well as for the commissioners, no later than the 15th of April. Something else on that day, too. Yeah, it's not yours. Hey, I would just want to say thank you for everyone and your interest in this. We are always open for any questions that anyone might have at any time. Just feel free to email us or call us. Email is usually quicker, depending. But we're here to, you know, give you the answers that you're looking for, you know, and if we don't know, you know, the answer, we'll reach out to other entities to try to get you the answer that you like. With that, any final questions? Yes, sir.
Sorry, I got so many questions.
No, you're fine, sir. You're fine.
But I'm a full-time resident, so pay my taxes here. Parking is become more of an issue in Walton County. So is the county thinking through this department at some time limiting the number of vehicles that a short-term rental could bring? Such as, we have 3 bathrooms, so you're limited to 3 cars, not 6 cars, because there is no place to park 6 cars. Has the county thought about that, or your department thought about, when they fill out this application, could there be on the application question or a limit of that?
Yes, sir. And to answer that, in the ordinance right now, in the Land Development Code, there are guidelines for, you know, how much parking is allowed per house, per structure. And when we talk about parking, it's only the parking that is on that property. Right? So we can't, I'm not, you know, going to say, oh, yes, you can park on the road, like that road parking is yours. No, that's not your property, that's, you know, the road. Only on the property itself. Now, it is a tricky situation, right? When you have a wide breadth of properties that have been built. You know, we have some that are on the program right now that are built in like the 50s, right?
Right.
And some that were just built last year.
Yeah.
For those older ones, we don't have the approved plans for those, right? The approved plans are only kept, I believe it's 5 years by the building department. I could be off on that, but there's a finite amount of time, is what I'm saying. So what we have to do then is go off available space, right? And then, okay, if your driveway is, let's say 20 feet wide, right, by 40 foot long, yeah, you could fit, according to the current parking standards, 9 foot wide by 20 foot in depth, that's 1 parking space. So with a 20 by 40 foot length of a driveway, that's not on the right of way, you know,
Yeah.
you could fit 4. That's how many you can have officially. Now, when it goes to other parking on the street, there are other, like, there has to be other, how can I say, signage and certain items for like no parking that are required
Yeah.
to make sure that people don't park on the street. But then again, like for those type of issues, street code compliant, we'll gladly go down there and remind people, hey, you know, you have to keep these areas open. Because in a lot of the places too, a lot of people don't understand that there are minimums that have to be maintained for emergency vehicles to be
Right.
able to get into
And
some of these
that's our big
neighborhoods.
concern.
Yes, sir. For a bi-directional road, it's 20 feet. Like, you have to have 20 feet clear, so, you know, fire and EMS and emergency services can access
Yeah.
that area. So if you have people parking, you know, all over the place, it hinders, you know, our emergency services ability to get.
We have them parked side by side.
Yes, sir.
There's no way a fire truck could get through there. But the problem we've got is private roads.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Oh, it doesn't
Private-
matter.
Private or public roads, it's a Florida fire protection law. It's 20 feet for a bi-directional road. I believe it's 15 feet for a one-directional road. But it's very clear. The state statute's very clear. And I mean, we're talking about trying to keep people safe, right? Yes, we want people to come here and spend their money, right?
Sure.
Keeps our taxes low. But we want it to be in a safe and responsible manner, right? And sometimes, yes, you know, we understand that people that visit sometimes don't understand, you know, what our rules are in terms of parking, but that's where it's incumbent upon, you know, those owners and managers to remind people, you know, hey, you know, you're only allowed to have this many on the property. And, you know, report anything that isn't.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
If someone has not been aware that this full compliant short-term rental certification program was in existence through this past year, they become aware of it and they apply for it to get this in place, to ensure everything is taken care of, is this $500 a day fine inactive, like from whenever you pass this instead of 23? So is there a $500 a day fine that the homeowners going to be fined from the time that took place? If they're trying to be proactive and go online and do whatever they need to do to become certified?
So so there's a couple factors there, right? You're not going to be fined until you've been taken to the magistrate. And by that point, you know, we have attempted to contact you. We've posted the notices on the property. Code Compliance reaches out to you. It's not until, you know, we've done everything that, and even beyond what we're legally supposed to do to try to get a hold of you to say, hey, you need to, you know, come into compliance. That's when the fine is assessed. You know, if you're found guilty by the magistrate, right? It's not it's from that point forward, not retroactively. What I say when I said retroactive fees, that's the fees that they should have paid the county for those years that they were operating, but didn't. Okay, it's different. The fee as opposed to a fine. So fees, yes, retroactively, we charge those. You know, if they were active and operating, because you were supposed to, by law. But yes, fines, it's from whenever the magistrate gives the order and forward. Yes, ma'am. All right. Well, thank you very much for everyone that joined us today here in person and online. Like I said before, I will have this up tomorrow morning. So the whole presentation, along with the handout packet, I'll include the pictures that are on the wall, posted on the wall, so everyone can get a chance to look at it. And if you have any other questions, like I said, please submit a question, and we'll be happy to respond. Thank you very much, and have a great night.